Hello, and welcome to my review of the Netflix original series, Hollywood. I am your host, the Fat Mantis. In Ryan Murphy's second outing on Netflix, it ended up being a tell-all miniseries about the seedy underbelly of 1940s movie industry. Part fantasy, part cautionary tale for every young kid with the naive dreams of becoming a celebrity. Who is Ryan Murphy? He brought us complete and utter disgust with his show Nip Tuck. He brought us both tears and laughter with Glee. He reminded us to fear the night with American Horror Story. He transported us back to the 90s in American Crime Story. He broke barriers with Pose, and he quite possibly committed artistic suicide with Feud. For those of you who don't know, that's when you do something so well but are never able to replicate again because you were so awesome that one time. What does Hollywood do for us? Well, that's a good question. The story starts off with a World War II veteran with a pregnant wife in tow returns to America with no job prospects. He believes his dashing good looks can get him a part as a low-level actor in Hollywood where he can eventually slide on in to being a big star. And he moves out there to make this happen. Unfortunately, it doesn't immediately happen, and instead he becomes, spoiler alert, a male prostitute. And those sorts of antics remain to dominate the entire series as it continues to delve deeper and deeper into the sex abuses that happen in Hollywood, not just in the 40s, but there is a strong implication that they are talking about Hollywood this very day. Just look at the news. If there's anything you're going to get out of this series, it's watching great actors do great things. And there's a ton of them sprinkled across the board from episode 1 to finally episode 7, the finale. And there are some good ones. And I'm going to have to say that the best in show was Jim Parsons playing Henry Wilson. Now, you probably know him as Sheldon. And this is actually the first time I've ever had the opportunity and the pleasure to see him act a character who's more deep or different and to see his range. And I was hella impressed. I feel like every episode he was the best actor. I don't know when award season is, but I hope they remember him when the time comes. Now, there are other great performances that are fluttered throughout it, including names like we've got Patti LuPone, Samara Weaving, Jimmy Pope, Dylan McDermott playing a pimp who reminds you of your grandfather. That was a great performance right there. Jake Picking is probably my second favorite of the actors, and he actually played a historical character, Rock Hudson, who we'll get into in a few minutes. And unfortunately, we had some duds. American Crime Story and Glee alum Darren Criss ended up being flat. Now, I wouldn't say he was horrible, but I certainly wouldn't say he was good. His character had no arc, and he was just kind of there to be a pretty face, and just to be standing there. He was like a cup of coffee or a potted plant. It's literally just there, and you will forget about it within 5 minutes of experiencing whatever those things do for you. Person who was worst in show, the Hall of Shame, is Laura Harrier, who played Camille. I'm actually surprised she's an actor. I'm assuming that she's related to some important producer or something, and that's where she gets her roles, because her performances were literally horrible. You know, there's actually a scene, they're in acting school and they're studying the mid-Atlantic accent, and that is so ironic that that was brought up, because as an actress, Laura Harrier was completely unable to maintain a single accent through the entire piece. Not just that, many characters strove very hard to pick up mannerisms and sayings and just simply act like they're from the 40s, and most of the cast was able to pull this off except for her. Her mannerisms and the way she spoke was straight out of the modern age. There were other just bad acting decisions that also pulled you out of the things. You know, notable is my favorite episode, which is the screen test episode. I believe it's called Screen Test, episode 4. Where we actually get to see the characters do their parts. Jake Picking playing Rock Hudson. Now, they overdid his stupidity and him constantly messing up his lines and ended up doing like 67 takes where he just has to say 1 or 2 lines. It is, of course, mocking Rock Hudson, but it is done so well that it will entertain you to the end. But when it was Camille's time, it was unbelievable that she was the better actress to win the role. They did not drive home that she was a competent actress in the slightest. Now, even though this happened, it doesn't detract a lot from the series because this is an ensemble cast, and so many good performances exist here, it is possible to just kind of ignore her. So the next thing I want to get into is the tone. Ryan Murphy's main tone is always camp. No matter what he's doing, it's camp. And sometimes in American Horror Story, it's camp and it's lovable and you're laughing, and then something horrific or scary will happen. And I think that works very well with horror. However, the same thing happened in this series. Particularly, things are completely camp one minute and then they get serious to a crazy degree. Like when you see the horrors of the Hollywood casting couch, and also the great sexual abuses, very serious, dark themes are being told. And they tell it right after having characters who look like they belong in some sort of joyful musical. It really didn't sit right with me, and it just kind of sometimes made me feel incredibly awkward. An example is right after some of the greatest sexual abuses you see in the series, they have a whole sequence where the male prostitutes need to earn money, and it's almost like they're high school kids doing a car wash, and they're having fun and laughing about it, and it becomes almost like an episode of Glee. I didn't understand what I was watching at that point. I think it is a tonal problem that didn't translate well into this particular genre. I would have rather it be dark and serious the whole time, the way American Crime Story is. So what we have to talk about is historical characters and what we can argue against inaccuracies versus artistic license. Now, Henry Wilson, the agent of Rock Hudson and later on a producer of the said film, is a historical character, and so is Rock Hudson, as well as their characters navigate through Hollywood at the time. So they see things like famous actors at the time, and they're, smaller parts where they're playing these roles. And that was fun to see, and that was great. But particularly with Rock Hudson, they completely alter his life. It is completely indiscernible that he's Rock Hudson. Now this falls into one of the few problems I had with 1984 American Horror Story, which I thought was amazing. But I really think they should have renamed the serial killer in that. Ryan Murphy likes to change the histories and lives of serial killers to put them in American Horror Story. But Richard Ramirez deviated so far from what actually happened that they really should have just given the character a different name. We would have assumed he was based off of him. And with Rock Hudson, it should have been the same. They could have named him Rock Rivers or almost any other thing that the writers wanted to come up with. But to name him Rock Hudson and then to slander his name like that just kind of blew me away. I actually wonder about what is the libel or the slander laws of this, and could they be sued for drastically lying about his history. It comes to a very fantastical ending where this is a story of a first-time director who's able to take his complete newbie cast, sweep the Oscars, defeat everything, including American racism. At the end, there is a great implication that both the KKK and protests against a movie about interracial love and all these other things would completely dissolve if people just fought a little harder. And basically, in that universe, they have now eliminated a need for Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or the civil rights movement as a whole, because this one film solves everything. And I'm not sure what that message is, that why this is here or why Ryan Murphy chose that direction, but I didn't care for the ending, even though I really enjoyed the ride. What's actually really interesting is that it was not originally what the series began with. The war for racial equality did not happen until late into the series. It just changed tone and feel, a drastic left turn out of the blue. Ultimately, even though it sounds like I'm hard on it, I'm gonna give this one an 81. I enjoyed it enough. There were great messages found throughout it, and there were great performances, and actually the replication of 1940s Hollywood is just fun to watch. This is definitely a must-see for any Ryan Murphy fan. If you're into the cult of Murphy, I would get on this and definitely check this out. So guys, what did you think of Hollywood? Am I too hard on Laura Harrier? Is she actually a redeemable actress and I'm just being a jerk? What did you think about that fantastic ending? What did you think about its connection to civil rights? Please let me know in the comments. And guys, everyone who's an actor, writer, director going at it, keep struggling, do everything you can, but please don't allow anyone to abuse you, even if you're on your quest to make it in Hollywood. We need to hope that the casting couch and all these other things dissolve and are defeated at the end of the day. We don't want to play into that, and please be safe out there, guys. Live the dream. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, ciao for now.